We are here once again with James Maida, one of our favorite interviews ever at G2E. And James is the founder and the head of Gaming Laboratories International, GLI. And James, welcome again.
Thanks for having me back.
It's been a busy year. I know your company continues to grow. You're a globetrotter. I heard you before we came on camera talking about being in Zurich. Tell us, what's happening at GLI? What's happened in the past year, and what do you see moving forward?
I think this year, Frank, we've been really working on delivery. We say at the company, we need to be on time, on budget, and highest quality every time we do something. And we've just come through doing 3 acquisitions, 2 in the gaming space and 1 in the bulletproof space. We're slightly over 1,600 employees today in the GLI group, heading probably to 1,700 by sometime next year. But really what we are focusing on is to making sure that we deliver world-class customer service to any company who engages our services, large, small, medium, wherever we find them. And we've been doing great things in terms of on-time delivery, better than 95%. Our quality metrics, over 99.85% over the last year. So we're doing all of those things. I think the things that suppliers worry most about is when we give them a price or we tell them how long it's going to take, do we meet that commitment? And we do that about 97.1% of the time. So those are the 3 things that we've been working really hard on, at the same time that we're integrating SIQ and integrating iTech. And then on the bulletproof side, we purchased a company, a cybersecurity company in Boston. So we're doing all of those things and making sure that our customers get world-class customer service while we're making the delivery even better.
You started off as a certification company, if that's the right word. And with these acquisitions, you're branching out into related areas. You mentioned cybersecurity a second ago. What are some of the services beyond the certification that we normally think about that GLI is now providing?
So when you look at the new company, regulators coming on board in the United States and new lotteries and new lottery products, we are most often, in almost every case, their consultant to help them get up and running. Legislatures pass legislation and want the lottery or the gaming board to be up and running within months, and it's a monumental job. So we do this for regulators all over the world, especially here in the United States. Just this week, while we're here all at G2E, we have another team of people at the International Gaming Regulators Conference in Botswana. And so one of the things, we have 120 people globally that meet with regulators, and every week we're out trying to meet with them. So that's something that we do a lot of consulting that way. Also, we're advising them on cybersecurity issues, on problem gambling issues, anything that they need help on, and if we can't help them, we get other teams of people who join us to help us. I think regulators are really worried a lot about AML, KYC, problem gambling, advertising, all of these things that are not really tangential to what we do, but we consult in that area. And then we use that information of what the regulator wants us to do as we're actually testing and certifying things.
It shows you how the gaming industry has grown. I remember when Shreveport, Louisiana was an exotic outpost, and now you're in Botswana.
Right. I remember when we used to just test spinning wheel slot machines, the introduction of the first video reel game, right? But things have clearly moved far beyond that, and that's why we have so many delivery people. More than 1,100 delivery people in our company that are tasked at everything from iGaming, iLottery, mobile, understanding how geolocation works and all of those things. So you need quite a diverse team to be able to do what we do.
You've already hit upon, James, a couple of the hot issues of the day. Maybe you can elaborate a little bit on the issues that regulators and companies face. We'll start with, say, cybersecurity.
Yeah, I think the most important thing, people always wonder what we think is most important, and really it's not about what GLI thinks is most important. As we meet with regulators all over the globe, and we meet with them in their office, we try to not do it by Zoom, we hear what keeps them up at night, and then we take that back and we provide that to the suppliers and say, suppliers and operators, this is what the regulator is concerned about, and we meet them. I think right now we could talk about cybersecurity. We just had the breach here in Las Vegas that made all the news, and this always happens: a breach, big headlines, people dig in and try to fix it, but then the headlines fade away. And so we're continuing to work with casino operators all over the globe. In fact, we do many casino operators. We manage their network systems 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. We have more than 200 people that are out doing penetration tests and ISS tests. And these are things that regulators are now requiring. You have to have your system looked at to make sure that it is not going to be hacked. Right? I think geolocation is something that people need to make sure that it's always being done and it's being done right. And I think regulators worry about that. And then, of course, the other thing that keeps them up at night is AML, money laundering, knowing your customers. And you don't have to look far, but to look in the Australia, made the headlines, whether it's Star or Crown, and the big investigation in Australia. And that's what happens when, things get a little bit ahead of us. And I think a lot of the industry working with GLI understands that this now is much more important than maybe when they first thought. And I think as we start going to mobile and things like that, as that starts happening everywhere in the world, as everything is cashless and mobile, I think that presents challenges. You're no longer seeing people. It's harder to do KYC or age verification, and did your child steal your credit cards, and those kinds of things. So I think these are the things that keep regulators up at night.
Are there things that people in the industry should be doing now better or more in terms of like cybersecurity than historically?
So we have a standard, our GLI standard on cybersecurity. We're updating it based on the breaches and what we've read in the headlines. I think that every casino operator, every supplier, even GLI, GLI, we use Bulletproof to check our cybersecurity. I think that cybersecurity is no longer an optional thing. You should be doing it in-house and have your own in-house experts, but I think it's really important to make sure you're getting an outside third-party perspective. And I think there are many casino regulators all over the world that are now insisting upon this because they just don't want to be the next headline.
Sure, I think that's a really good point because it's that third-party outside guy who's trying to get into your system.
Right, and I would say that we're also work very closely with in-house staff. This isn't a choice between GLI and in-house staff. What this is a choice of, it's in-house staff with another set of eyes to bring value and real value. We've been doing this, we bought Bulletproof in late 2013, so we're more than 10 years into this, and we do thousands and thousands of penetration tests a year, and as I said, we monitor people's networks. So, we're not new to this, but every day there's a new way of hacking in, and we know about that, and we do a lot of education around that.
With the proliferation of sports betting and online gaming, there's become a heightened awareness of responsible gaming.
Right.
And we've seen, especially in Europe, we've seen regulators put ever more restrictive regulations onto gaming operators. And a lot of companies in the United States seem to have, I won't say it's a complacent attitude, but there seem to be, we got this covered. How do you see the field of responsible gaming in terms of what gaming companies in the U.S. maybe aren't doing enough of or should do better?
I can't really talk to that there are companies in the United States that are complacent because I frankly don't see that. But what I do see is if we as an industry don't take care of it for ourselves, somebody else might. And I'm not talking about a gaming regulator. I might be talking about a federal regulator or another federal body in Washington. I think it's incumbent upon this industry to make sure that we are ahead of the ball and we make sure that we are doing everything we can to protect the players that need to be protected. I think one of the areas that I think we all need to work on globally is this idea of responsible gaming. Every operator, whether you're online or land-based, has their own list of people that are self-excluded or whatnot. But if I'm self-excluded on one site, I could go to another site. So how do we share lists? How do we share the technology so we don't let people get around this type of we can make sure we have this right behavior handled in a way that makes the player feel good and the way that protects them as well. So I think that we're all coming on board. The industry's moving. Some might think that we're not moving fast enough, but the warning is you don't want to wind up like the tobacco industry that got really far behind, or the opioid industry that got really far behind. So I think the AGA does a great job. Bill Miller and his team do a great job talking about this to their members. And I think for the most part, we're making good progress.
What other issues do you see out there, James, that
I think
should
that,
be thinking about?
Yeah, Frank, I think the biggest issue we haven't talked about is illegal gambling, right? Illegal or unregulated or untaxed or whatever name you want to put it on. And there's a lot of that, not only here in the United States, but around the world. You see websites that are not licensed in certain countries, and places like Norway just announced they're going to do another crackdown in Sweden, and the Netherlands has done fining people and cracking down. But that happens all over the world. And then of course there are states where you can walk into bars and restaurants and you can play skill games and other games of chance and other things like this that are not, don't have a regulatory system, right? And therefore we don't have protections in place for AML. We don't have protections in place for underage gaming. We don't have protections in place for problem gambling. So I think that on a global basis, not just here in the United States, dealing with illegal gambling, or let's not even say it's illegal, let's say it's unregulated, untaxed gaming, is I think one of the biggest issues. I know the AGA has been taking that on, and I think that's something we all have to be aware of. But after all, the people in the regulated system have spent a lot of money getting their licenses, and if to compete with somebody that is not regulated, doesn't have to spend that money, it does suggest an unlevel playing field.
Okay, let's talk about a subject that's kind of, a year or two ago you might have thought it was science fiction, but today it's becoming increasing. It's a buzzword today.
Right.
Artificial intelligence.
So we spend a lot of time looking at artificial intelligence. And my view on artificial intelligence is, again, GLI doesn't make products to sell. So we are the ones that work with suppliers as they're utilizing artificial intelligence. We work with regulators and talk to them about what their concerns about artificial intelligence. So if you think of artificial intelligence as lots of data in a really massively large database that can sort of predict behavior or what's going to happen in the future, or tells us a lot about who I am or who you are when you're trying to open a bank account or something like that. So AI is a tool, and like any tool, it could be used well, but it also has some downside. So I think AI is great when we're trying to figure out, are you trying to beat the geolocation system because you have a VPN open up over here, but you have your cell phone over here and you're not where you're supposed to be? Or when I need to understand about, are you money laundering? Why are these transactions coming in so rapidly and they're all under $10,000? So when we're doing KYC, AML, underage gaming, I think AI is a really great tool. Where I don't think it's a great tool is where we start trying to figure out who can gamble more. How can we get people to gamble more, right? How do I keep someone in front of a slot machine longer than they want to? Or what game does Frank want to play? And then I can do that. Now, I'm not against that, but I think when we get into that world, we start butting up against those concerns that regulators are having even before we had AI. So I think it's used well, it's a great tool. Right. Like anything else, used poorly, it's not a great tool.
Yeah, and that's one of the questions that I have, because everybody talks about having more data for marketing, and the more we know about what our customer wants, the better we can sell them. But in gaming, at least, it seems to me you come to a point where that's no longer just knowing more about your customer to meet his wants, but maybe cross over that line into kind of like manipulation.
And I think that line is a place that we're all trying to make sure that we find. I would just tell the industry and tell anybody who listens, let's stay clearly on the correct side of the line, because when we cross over the line, it might be more difficult. But I think AI has a great use. I also think that sometimes too much data is too much data, and I know, Frank, you have been the master of data and looking at data around companies and what they do, right? And I'm sure you can agree, when you have too much data, you might actually arrive at the wrong conclusion.
Yeah, the old expression, which predates computers and everything else, is paralysis through analysis, and I guess that still holds true.
But we're really excited for AI. We just want to make sure that as we're talking to suppliers, and we do this on a daily basis, and we're out meeting with regulators on a daily basis, 2 different teams. Sometimes the teams go together. Those that meet with suppliers also meet with the regulators. And we're listening to their concerns, and then we're thinking, okay, what do we need to do a feedback into the supplier world so that they understand what the concerns are? A lot of times, suppliers and operators come to GLI and say, what do the regulators think? And regulators will come to us and say, what's new on the supplier world? And that's why we have our regulators roundtable every year. Last year, I think we had over 350 people attend. This year, it'll be in April again this year, and we're really looking forward to that. We'll be doing panels on AI and KYC and all of these things that keep regulators up at night, because it's regulators who write in and tell us, here's what we love to hear, to see the panel on. So we're really looking forward to that.
Great. Well, we covered a lot of bases in a short period of time. Any other issues out there that you would like to elaborate on?
I think that at GLI, for us, we continue to compete against ourselves. Right? We have metrics, and we want to make sure that, again, we've been working on delivery. We've been working on it hard. Even when we're acquiring companies or adding employees, that's no excuse for any poor delivery. And we just, if we're at 99.5%, we want to be at 99.75%. We want to make sure that every time we tell a customer what we're going to do, when we're going to do it, and how we're going to do it, we have to actually perform and keep our word every single time. And we have a great delivery team. We have a great marketing team. But the marketing team cannot market poor delivery. And the delivery team that we have is world class, and it's 27 offices, as I said, a little over 1,600 employees globally, and they all have to work together like a symphony to get the work through the lab and get people what they want. At the end of the day, people need to sell things. People need to invest in the industry so that they can do better and make more products. So unfortunately, sometimes we're the bystander. We're sitting there waiting for the industry to come up with ideas rather than us putting new ideas out there.
James, as always, a very informative, insightful discussion.
Thank you for having me, Frank. I really appreciate it. Thank you.